In this video, I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a magazine cover as according to the directions on week 12. Let me visit that first. A previous video might have shown you how to create a People magazine cover that has a lot of moving parts, and it's quite a long video that was actually recorded during a 3-hour session back when we had evening classes. This one, though, is the one that I usually show my students in the morning class. I'm going to do a Time magazine cover. I've given you some links that you can visit, either Google Imaging, to look for a character or a famous person that you want to use. Of course, you could also use your own personal photo. You don't have to use an existing magazine. You can create your own. I'm going to see if I can just find something that catches my eye pretty quick. This is a non-commercial attribution, non-commercial license from Flickr. Some of these are personal photos that other people have uploaded. Some of them are just free submissions to some websites that you could use. There's no going wrong with this, just as long as you don't sell your magazine to a publisher. Unless it's your own photo, then by all means do whatever you need. There's also links to existing magazine covers so that you can sort of get an idea of what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Magazines are not as popular as they once were. The one that I'm going to show you here has got to create a Time magazine because they're not, well, it's not People magazine, that's for sure. They have less moving parts. So why don't I do that? Instead of saying Google Images magazine covers, I'm going to look for Time magazine cover to get an idea. Most Time magazine covers throughout the years have been the same. They have a photograph with a subject, and they're surrounded by a red border. And the images can be either behind the logo, in front of the logo. You can see that they use different typefaces throughout their history, so it's going to be up to you really what you want to do. Don't get constrained by, oh no, I cannot find this one particular font or font family. There's something here that's kind of a good idea here. Just it's a face with a little bit of text, the traditional Time magazine cover frame. I'm going to get started before I even get the picture in Photoshop. I'm using Adobe Photoshop CC2019. Just about any version of Photoshop is good enough for a Time magazine cover. I'm going to create a new document, File, New. If you're watching this at home and you're using a PC instead of a Mac, which is what I'm using here, don't be alarmed. Everything's pretty much about the same, except there's a little Apple logo up here. Yours is going to have a Windows logo down there. Programming is the same. I'm going to ask for a new document, a print document to be precise. A magazine size is the same size as a letter, which is 8.5 by 11 inches. The resolution currently is at 300. I'm going to drop this at 100 dpi so that I don't have too many issues uploading it once I'm done with it. I start out with a blank document that's just a white background. I'm going to show my layers. Actually, I'm going to rearrange my workspace. Somebody was asking me about 3D stuff, and I switched to 3D. I'm back to just the essential workspace. Here's my layers. And that's really all I need to see right now. It's that background. I'm working on an 8.5 by 11. 8.5 is right about here. 11 down here. My corners start at 0. I'm going to put in some guides so that I can start to create the magazine cover. I'm going to press and hold the Shift key and bring in a ruler from the side. And I'm going to drop it in. I'm pressing the Shift key so that I can see where exactly I am. Right now I'm at the ½ inch mark, 0.5 inches. Same thing from the top. Bring it into ½ inch, 0.5 inch. Same thing for the other end. I'm clicking and dragging all the way across. If it's 8.5, I only go to 8. and 11 I go to 10.5 from the bottom, and that way now I have some guides that will allow me to create the red border that's so distinctive about Time magazine. You'll also notice that beyond the border there's also a white rule that's on top of them. Simple enough. Let's pick a red. I'm going to click on the foreground color so I can get my color picker. And I'm going to mix using the CMAC colors, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. If I want red, there's no blue, which is no cyan. Magenta should be at 100%. Yellow, I'm going to put in 20 to make it a little bit vibrant, and black, I'm going to keep it maybe at either 10 or 0. Maybe I'll add a little bit more than, yeah, I'll put it at 10 because this red is really magenta looking, and I think that basically I'm thinking of a different color because I need more yellow. I need 100% yellow to make it really truly red, at least Time magazine red. Now, although I'm going to end up with just this rule around the picture, I'm going to paint the whole thing red. I'm going to the edit menu and tell it to fill it with the foreground color, which is red. Click OK. Everything else is going to be happening in layers on top of this background. So I'll create my new layer, layer 1. And as I told you before, beyond just the red line, the red rule around it, there's also a white line that separates that red from the rest of the picture. So I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool and make a selection that encompasses the guides that I just created. That being selected, I can tell it then to add a stroke. So I'm going to edit and select stroke. All that does is really it creates a line, a rule, a stroke as it were. I'm going to keep it in the center. I'm going to change the color from the red that I'm using to a white. That's the absence of any of the CMAC colors or the total saturation of RGB. White it is. And I'm going to change the width to maybe beyond the 1 pixel, maybe 3 or 4, maybe try 3. I think 3 should be fine. I'm going to deselect what I just did, Command D to deselect, Control D in your PC. So that I don't see the guidelines anymore, I can also press the Tab key. No, not the Tab key. I'm thinking of something else. I'm going to press Command H and hopefully I won't lose my screen. There it is. If you're using a Mac at home and you press Command H and everything went away, don't worry. You just gotta find the correct settings. Use something else or just trust yourself that there is a white rule on my layer 1 now. I'm going to rename layer 1, by the way, to white rule just so that I don't lose track of it. So next there is a picture of Jeff Sessions here. It doesn't have to be Jeff Sessions. I'm going to maybe look for somebody else. Why don't I look for somebody more favorable with the times, these times, past times, future times, and see if I can get Jeff Bridges, but not just Jeff Bridges, but see if I can find Jeff Bridges as the dude. And get me a good enough picture that's not too creepy. So I've selected that one and it may be a little bit small, so let me view the file anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, I'm not going to be publishing this and selling it on the streets. I'm going to right click and copy that image, come back to my document, make sure that I am behind the white rule, which is under the white rule layer. So somewhere between background and white rule, there's only one place, and paste what I just copied. I'm going to press Command T, Control T for PC users. It's the same thing as going to edit and telling it to the free transform. I'm going to drag this so that I have enough of Jeff Bridges to cover the space. It's not necessarily a good idea to start out with a small picture and then make it large, but like I said, I'm in a little bit of a hurry to get this done. It's a little bit way too small. So let me let me see if I can find a larger image by telling it, and rather than all sizes, show me a large image of the dude. And this is the same image except it's got more resolution. I'm going to copy this one and do the same process. Well, it's not the same one, it's a similar one nonetheless. I'll press Command T, and notice how I'm trying to keep him within the guides and within the white rule. Okay, so I'll put him somewhere here. I can get rid of my first layer, layer 1, which has the old picture. I can just trash it. And then I can do the same thing, make a selection that encompasses the guides. I press Command H again to bring them back. I make that selection, and then in my layer 2, which has the picture of the dude, if I can spell correctly, it's only 4 letters. Same pronunciation, but horribly misspelled. Okay, so maybe not today with that, but once I do have the selection, I can click on my mask, and now my guides are still there, my white rule is still there, and more importantly, the dude is still there. The next thing that I'm going to go search for, since I'm making a Time Magazine cover, I'm going to search for the Time Magazine logo. You're going to get several options. The ones that I'm looking for specifically, don't look for JPEG, don't look necessarily for a PNG, although some PNGs might work. I'm looking for a transparency, not a flat image. So I'm going to add to my search Time Magazine logo, and I'm going to add SVG, which is a vector graphic. That is something that's going to get redrawn every time. So I make a selection here. I'm going to go see if I can view this file. It's an EPS file. Actually, that's a JPEG. I don't want the JPEG. I'll refine my search to transparent. I think part of the problem is that my search engine is not currently Google. It's a safer one. Unfortunately, because it's safer, it's DuckDuckGo, I don't get all the results that I want. And this is actually the result that I want. I want to actually see the transparency in the logo. So I can see that this one's got a checkerboard behind it. This one is just a letter T. I want the whole thing. I want the whole logo. So I'll see if this one will actually help me if I go to the website. I click it. That is transparent, definitely. But it may not be large enough. This one is from Wikipedia, so I know then that it's got a transparency. I'll visit it again and check out the extension. It's an SVG, so I'm going to right click on it and tell it to save as, and it's going to save it as an SVG image. I'm going to put it on my desktop folder, Time Magazine logo, and save it. I'll go back to my design, and rather than just opening it and copying and pasting it, I'm going to embed it. I'm going to File menu and place an embedded file. Look for it. It should be called Time. I'll place it, and it shows up right in the middle. I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And put it across his forehead. That's all the image of the dude that I have, so there's not much more that I can do here rather than play with the background. So I have my Time Magazine logo, which is embedded in an image. I can hide it, I can edit it, I can move it around. But it's going to stay in that layer. And pretty much we're almost done. One other thing that a Time Magazine cover needs is going to be the price and the volume number, etc. If I go back to look at my Time Magazine covers, if I can zoom in to one of these, I can see that it's going to have that information on top. It tells that that's the month, the day, and the year. And so I'm going to use my text tool. I'm going to select a simple enough font. In this case, I'll use Arial, which you can find on your Mac or your PC. I'm going to make sure that the color that I use is black. And the size doesn't need to be so large. So I'm going to start out to see what maybe 20 looks like. I'm going to click. There's my lorem ipsum. This is going to be in all caps, I do believe. So I'll put in today's date. Today is January 35th of 1973. And I'll make, now I know I need to make it a little bit smaller, so I'll put in number 12 for the font size, and then move it to the size using my move tool. Have I ever mentioned the move tool is your best friend? It's a great thing that in 1973 we have access to Adobe Photoshop 2019. I'll tell you that. Okay, so this is almost done. All I need now is just a little bit of text to tell the reader what the magazine article is going to be about. So I'll go back to my text tool. I'll pick another font and I'll use another friendly font. I'll use Impact. There's only one Impact. It's Impact Regular. If you've ever used this thing called the Internet, you can get it in select Radio Shack stores in 1973. Don't change your font, the one that's already there. Make sure that you do it on a new font, on a new place. I'll just type in the dude to save it. You can catch my mistake. I changed the date. I'll double click, change it from Impact to Arial, which is what I originally wanted. And it's black, and so that's good. The dude, I can make it a lot larger. So I'll take it from 12 to 72, which is pretty big. Make sure that it's readable. It's got contrast, so I start out by making it white. I'll press Command T to make it even larger. If I want to keep on the contrast with this, if I want to make this look sort of like a meme, I can add a stroke effect. I'm on the text that says the dude. I'm going to change the effects to add a stroke. And I make sure that it's black, that it's outside the text, and right now it's at 4, which seems to be working. You can obviously change the size to make it thicker, make it thinner, but 4 seem to be just about right. It's good enough temperature for your average bear. If you want to add any more text to this, you could. Just use your text tool again, and continue talking about the story. Maybe that one will not have the stroke around it. Maybe it'll have something different. Maybe it'll just change color altogether. I'm going to select it and tell it to pick a color. See how I clicked on the chip that has the current color. If you hover on top of the image, it then turns into an eyedropper, and I'm going to click and see if I can select a color that hopefully will tie the room together. I'll click OK, and I'll tell it, just because I'm pretty sure that sweater color against sweater color might not be readable, I'm going to click on the Move tool, my best friend, and tell it to add a drop shadow that can stay in multiply, that can stay with a higher opacity than what I got currently, and goes from one side to the next. I'll click OK. It's basically a black shadow, which means I really should be using a lighter tone for the font. I'll use maybe something out of the other side of the sweater, or his face, or why not maybe even his hair. Just don't want to have too many foreign colors from outside the picture. White would also work. Click OK, and that's it. All I need now is just a final thought. This is not a writing class, so lorem ipsum would be fine. I'll just type in something really ties the room together. And then that's it. Be sure to turn in your image with all the layers. So I'm going to File, Save As, keep it as a Photoshop, and just give it a name, Time Magazine. Put it somewhere where I can find it, and we're done.